Brought to you by the Dark Lord himself, Queasy Ali. The pandemic didn't begin with division. It began with confusion, fear, and a sense of global shock the world hadn't felt in generations. In March of 2020, for a brief moment, humanity was unified by something larger than politics. Everyone was watching the same images: empty streets in Italy, overwhelmed hospitals in New York, and countries shutting down almost overnight. In the earliest weeks, there were no red states or blue states, only people trying to make sense of something invisible, something spreading, something that didn't care who you voted for. Hospitals scrambled to keep up. Scientists raced to understand the virus. Masks went from obscure medical equipment to a global symbol of survival. And in those first chaotic weeks, most people listened. Most people tried. Most people cared. But as the weeks stretched into months, the noise grew louder. Social media filled with conspiracy theories. News personalities found that outrage paid better than accuracy. And political opportunists realized fear could be weaponized. The misinformation machine started spinning, not slowly, but explosively. Suddenly, experts were the enemy. Virologists, epidemiologists, and ICU doctors, people dedicating their lives to saving the sick, were accused of lying. Basic precautions were framed as oppression. Masks became political statements, and what should have been a united fight against a pandemic turned into a cultural battlefield. Inside hospitals, the reality was nothing like the online arguments. Doctors begged people to take the virus seriously. Nurses held iPads so families could say goodbye. Entire ICUs filled with patients on ventilators. Refrigerated trucks were lined outside hospitals as makeshift morgues because the death toll was too high to process. Healthcare workers were burned out, traumatized, and overwhelmed, while outside their walls, people argued about whether the whole thing was exaggerated. And then came the aftermath that barely gets talked about: long COVID. Millions of people around the world began experiencing symptoms that didn't go away: fatigue, memory loss, lung damage, neurological issues. Some lost their sense of taste or smell for years. Others developed chronic conditions that changed their lives forever. The economic cost, the human cost, the generational cost, it was enormous. And it hit hardest in communities that resisted prevention the most. All of this set the stage for what came next. Because once vaccines arrived, once a scientific miracle became available, the country had already been fractured by misinformation. And that fracture became measurable in human lives. This isn't speculation. This isn't opinion. This is what the data says, the data they don't want you to look at. In 2022, the peer-reviewed journal Health Affairs published a study that shattered the narrative. It found that counties with higher Republican vote shares experienced significantly higher excess death rates, especially after vaccines were available. Not a blog. Not a rumor. A top-tier medical journal. And the gap wasn't subtle. It wasn't a rounding error. It was predictable. The more Republican a county was, the more people died. Not because of access. Not because of wealth. Not because of hospital capacity. Because of choices. Then Yale University and the National Bureau of Economic Research ran their own analysis. Their conclusion was even more devastating. After vaccines became available, Republicans died at 76% higher rates than Democrats living in the same areas, same environment, same hospitals, same virus. The only difference was who listened to science and who listened to politicians. The Kaiser Family Foundation confirmed the pattern again. Trump-leaning counties had lower vaccination rates, higher hospitalization rates, and ultimately higher death rates. Politics became one of the strongest predictors of survival, stronger than race, age, income, or education. In the wealthiest nation on earth, your political identity became a public health risk factor. CDC county-level mortality maps made the divide painfully visible. Blue counties saw death rates collapse after widespread vaccination. Red counties did not. Week after week, the gap widened. It wasn't personal choice. It wasn't freedom. It was a mass casualty event fueled by disinformation. The Journal of the American Medical Association, JAMA, added the final confirmation. Researchers found that the majority of late pandemic deaths were preventable. Brown University estimated that tens of thousands of Americans died unnecessarily, solely due to vaccine refusal. Unnecessary. A word that cuts deeper than any statistic. These weren't numbers. They were families. Nurses reported that nearly every dying patient in late 2021 said the same things. I didn't think it was real. I thought the news was exaggerating. I thought I'd be fine. I wish I got the shot. And then they were gone. Not because of fate. Not because it was their time. But because they were fed a lie, A lie that turned public health into a culture war, a lie that told them science was a conspiracy and expertise was the enemy. The people who spread that lie walked away untouched. They kept their ratings. They kept their careers. They won their elections. The people who listened paid with their lives, and yet, as devastating as the American numbers were, they weren't universal. Other countries handled the crisis differently. South Korea, with strict early testing and compliance, kept death rates remarkably low. New Zealand shut down early and saved thousands of lives. Canada's trust in its medical institutions prevented massive spikes in mortality. Germany's early vaccination campaign blunted the deadliest waves. Meanwhile, the United States, one of the most medically advanced nations in the world, suffered some of the highest per capita losses of any developed country. These differences weren't cultural or genetic. They were the result of leadership, public trust, and whether misinformation was allowed to dominate the conversation. The pandemic didn't just wound nations, it scarred the entire world. Across the globe, COVID has taken more than 7 million confirmed lives, but global excess death models show the real number is close to 15 million. In the United States alone, over 1 million people are gone. 1 million empty chairs at dinner tables. 1 million stories cut short. 1 million families changed forever. These aren't just numbers on a chart. They were parents, grandparents, brothers, sisters, neighbors, and friends. And the hardest truth is this: so many of those deaths didn't have to happen. They weren't inevitable. They were the predictable result of choices shaped by fear, denial, propaganda, and politics. Not fate. Not destiny. Choices. The lesson isn't about blame, it's about preparation. Because there will be another pandemic someday. Another crisis. Another moment where truth and misinformation collide. And the cost will once again be measured in lives. If we don't learn from this chapter, if we pretend it never happened, if we bury it because it's uncomfortable, then we're guaranteeing that history repeats itself. This isn't about left or right. It isn't about owning anyone. It's about understanding what went wrong so we can do better as a country, as communities, and as human beings. Truth isn't partisan. Truth isn't an attack. Truth is the only thing that gives us a chance to avoid repeating tragedy. And that's why we tell it. Kwesi Ali, the man, the myth, the legend. The icon, aka the Dark Lord. Hashtag Revolution 2025, hashtag Chaos Rising 2025, hashtag South Pole Rebellion 2025. Hashtag Logic over Lies, hashtag Truth over Tribes, hashtag Never Again America.